Got it? Okay, thanks, guys. Ah, you guys are amazing. You know, the best part of this whole thing is I know half of you. That's just so cool. Even if I know you from Twitter or from Facebook or whatever, this is like the coolest crowd ever. And you guys have been tremendously supportive, and I cannot thank you enough. And
hey, Andy.
well, this is, you guys can see everybody, right? This is so cool.
My daughters always say we're like sisters from another mother. Every time they see you, they're like, oh, you two are.
Oh, Sue, totally. I mean, yeah, that's so funny because so many of you guys have followed the story. I love the cats. Have similar points of view, are similarly life positive, you know, let's change things kind of people. So I got to say the squad that I have online is amazing because these are the people that are going to change the world. So, okay, sorry, I'm going to put the soapbox back underneath. So finally, any of you guys that do follow me know that I've been just bombed lately. Well, part of it is because I couldn't talk, which is really bad for an extrovert. It's extremely painful for an extrovert. And I process a lot by talking to you guys. So not being able to talk about it, it's been really hard. I can't see the chat. Let's turn on the chat just in case anybody, yay, there's even more people. I love it. Okay, we even have some other, I think we have some other survivors on the call, potentially.
Wow,
So
fantastic.
speak up. Well, I don't know, I can't see them right here, but they need to speak up as well if they want to speak up. So, Chris, are you here?
I'm here.
There's Chris Pedretti, yay. And any other folks from the Survivor Squad? Okay, it's the media, of course, is going nuts today, as you just saw. So that's okay. So here's the deal. On June 1st, I work with Ventura. So everybody's district attorney called their people. Sacramento, of course, had a heavy load. I'm lucky. I'm like a party of one, but my brothers and I talked with Ventura district attorneys. But we were told what was happening, and essentially on my call, it was a listening call. Like, what do you think? Is any issues? Because they had told us in March when we were absolutely prepared to go into a preliminary hearing. That was, I mean, we were fired up. We had met with the prosecutors that day. That was the day we were still in court. It's kind of before the pandemic became the pandemic. And we were all twitchy, but we weren't quite paranoid yet. That was the day before. It was the next day, like California shut it down. So we were all prepared for the preliminary hearing, and it was supposed to be May 14th. So of course I went ahead and decided to stay in Sacramento in my dorm room here at my daughter's house because I thought, oh, well, we're going to get going. But then Corona hit, COVID, whatever you want to call it, this new world we live in, this dystopian world. And so I knew things were going to get weird because we were supposed to go to court on April 29th. The hearing we're having on June 29th, which is when we go to court next. So mark your calendars, June 29th, which is, by the way, the day after the HBO special starts on June 28th. And you can all decide if that was kismet or if somebody knew what was going on. I'll leave you with that. Because kismet, once, when Michelle McNamara accidentally died, and then the book came out before he was arrested, that's kismet number one. But I don't know if there's kismet number two. Anyway, whatever, that's how the world works, right? Everybody knows everything quietly and things happen. And then, of course, Mr. Huddle's book is coming out. He's pre-announced it, which is rather brilliant because at least people can pre-order it. And I just got a note from his press person. I've asked for an interview, and it hasn't been turned down yet, but she absolutely confirmed that he's not doing this to make a ton of money or anything, that he honestly wants to share what he knows so we can have more of the story. Okay, that seems pretty decent. So I'll accept that as an explanation. And she was quite cordial in her email to me. So I'll see if I can set up that interview. But and he's not going to do a lot either. She said he's not going to do a lot of interviews, but I hope he does some because I think it's, let's get the rest of the story. All of us who followed this crime for so long are really interested in the rest of the story, or at least what we can know to understand how a person like this goes undetected all this time. Does he? We'll find out. So both those things happened, which anybody who wagers could have started to make some wagers. So his name is James Huddle. If you're looking for the book, it's on Amazon. It is a self-published book, which also tells me he just wanted, actually, somebody on this Zoom right now might have been one of the people that reminded me that when you self-publish, you don't have to be edited. And that might have been really important to him, is to not have his story spun for a publisher. So I'm going to give him grace and assume that's hopefully why he self-published. And I hope it's the outline of the book is in a few places on Facebook if you hunt around, but it looked like an interesting outline, honestly. So I'm hoping, again, James Huddle, and then let's see, and then the HBO thing is the 28th. So those two things are happening. And I just had a talk, I know I talked about this on the podcast, but I just talked with Paul Haynes last week, and he was the researcher on the Michelle McNamara book, and he feels really good about the HBO show. So that calmed me down a ton, because of course they're using a lot of hyperbole to sell it, but of course they are. It's a TV show. I mean, like, of course you're going to have a lot of hyperbole. So those are the things coming, which lead to the 29th, which is the day of the hearing. Supposed to be April 29th. It was supposed to be the motion to dismiss and the demurrer. Both of those things now are not an issue. So that's that. So we don't have a venue yet. The team has been remarkable in doing even a head count, because they're trying to manage social distancing, which, think about it. From the little bit I understand, and I don't want to overspeak because I'm trying to watch what the prosecutors are sharing, but this has already been published, that there are 26 counts. Those are the counts. If you go back to my blog, you can see the 26 counts. Those are the ones that were chargeable. So they, don't have a statute of limitations because it involved murder, or it was a kidnapping, rape, burglary charge they could make if you add that kidnapping. So those 26 counts are things where he can plead guilty and be convicted. And those, as I understand it, count as years. So the way they described it to us is, the way they want to do this is that if you get a guilty plea, click, 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 years. So murder of Lyman Smith, you get 80 years. I don't know. I'm making that up. I don't know how many years they are, but they're trying to do math, which I guess if you're a lawyer, you got to do math, but they're trying to do the math on all of the counts, the 26 counts. Then there are 62 crimes. I'm going to call them crimes for lack of a better way to talk about it. And everybody in the chat, don't worry, I'll get to your questions there. I'll just give you the top line that I know. But the 62 crimes, like Chris's, who's on the line. Chris, you can speak to this. That crime, he will admit to that crime.
Yes. Yeah. So my understanding, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. My understanding is that they're going to read each chargeable one and each unchargeable one. He will have to say guilty to each out loud for everybody to hear.
Wow.
And Chris, how does that, as somebody who didn't have a count pending, how does it feel to know now you actually get to be included?
It feels good. I mean, I feel, I don't know if the word validated is right, but, I wish that there was more to it than that. I feel like there's so much more that we need to know, and this is an easy plea for him. But, with no mistake, I do feel as though he's accepting accountability, and it's going to go on the books that way. So that's really good. I just wish there was more.
Yeah. So in California, as I understand it, allocution, when you tell what happened, when you have to come up and, I mean, we've all seen this on TV, typically, of course, crime shows, but they come up and allocute. That is not a requirement in California. So for all of us who have been dying to get some satisfaction here, we're not going to get it in that way. Possibly James Huddle's book will provide some, but it's not going to provide information about the crimes. And it's hard for me. I looked at the video that James has posted. There's a video on the Amazon page, I believe. It's hard to watch DeAngelo as a human. He's a human in court. I get that. But you know what I mean? Like a contemporary, somebody who was younger and like on a boat having a good time. Screw that. That pisses me off. It's hard to watch. But it happened. Like, it's true. So we won't have allocution as you might expect. What we will have, though, that's different, and I hope that they're going to stream this day so everybody can watch. But because we don't have a court record, as I understand it, there will be additional detail in the in each of the crimes. So for example, just use my dad again, but on or about, and for us it probably is on or about, because they don't know the exact day my dad was killed, on or about March 13th, did you enter the home of Lyman Smith? And then they'll say the stuff, which will be more than any of us needs to hear, unfortunately. And then they'll say, how do you plead? And then he will say, I plead X. The scoop I have for you guys, which I hope I don't get in trouble for sharing this, but oh well. That Jen Carroll, she has a big mouth. The scoop that I have for you guys, my whole life, by the way, since I was a kid, is that my big thing is like, at what point is he a convict? I just need to know when he's a convict. I don't care if he's a convict for one tiny little crime. I want him to go down as the Golden State Killer. As I understand it, it varies by jurisdiction. So some people think he has to sign a piece of paper, some people think it's another thing. But what I've learned is that in Sacramento, supposedly he's a convict the minute he says guilty to the very first charge.
Yeah.
So that could be, I hope it is, Claude Snelling in Visalia. That would then that, while we can't get him on any Visalia ransacker, that kind of puts a bow on Visalia ransacker. And so I'm hoping that I mean, I get chills because I actually hope that's the first one, because let's face it, the Claude Snelling murder and the Maggioris, who are out walking their dog, those are the two hardest cases to make on murder. We don't have DNA of those. We would need ballistics, and I don't think that they had a lot of ballistic stuff, because I don't know what was found in the house. I mean, that's the thing. We're never gonna, like, how are we gonna know all this stuff now that they did, right? That our insatiable curiosity is going to have to be sated with wine, I guess. I don't know what else to tell you, but we will hear a little bit more about the crimes, that he is a convict the minute he says guilty. So that's something. The day should be grueling and awful. No surprise when you got to go through that kind of this big of a pile of garbage. I would expect it's going to be emotional and hard. And all of us survivors, we've spent a lot of time talking to each other in the last 2 weeks because we couldn't talk to anybody else, and really going through a lot of emotions because, you know, it's just like you might expect. Yeah, it's going to be done. Yeah, I can move home. Like, yes, you know, we'll have sentencing in August, and that's all great. And I can finally put this thing behind me, which honestly will feel good. But he really went through this whole thing with no, like, he hasn't been inconvenienced, in my opinion. He's now sitting in a jail cell by himself, but aren't we all during this pandemic? I mean, we've all been in shelter in place. So he would have been sheltered in place anyway. Just 4 people would have had to be with him. But he, you know, he hasn't been inconvenienced. He's going to get to do this with very little inconvenience a day. He has to spend a day listening to all the things he's pleading guilty to. God, I hope he doesn't get off on it. He might, who knows? This might actually tickle his fancy. It's hard to understand his mentality. So that's where we are as we look at what goes forward. As I mentioned, then we have as we survivors have talked about, then we have HBO happening over July. So that will keep things going, which is weird, but true. And then we come back for sentencing in August. And as we understand it, and Chris, correct me if you've got it differently from Sacramento, because I got mine from Ventura, but we will be able to have our victim statements, and anybody who is a victim of the 88 crimes can
Or
speak.
family member. Or family member.
Oh, family members can talk. Is it just one of us, or can multiple? I don't even know how that works.
My understanding is that any family member or victim can, and that is going to take, it could be weeks. There's no way that many impact statements can be read. So that one is not going to be a one-dayer like when he's pleading the guilty. But I do want to say something, and you might have already said this. I lost my connection, so I had to go out and come back in. Did you let everyone know that they'll actually be able to watch it live?
Is that true?
What's that? They said they're going to have a YouTube channel. I'm thinking it's for the public because they're expecting so many people, they can't fit them in. So my understanding is I know that it will be live on a YouTube channel, and my assumption it is for the public, not just for us, because it's going to be a lot of reporters. There's going to be a lot of people who have followed this case and, want to see it. A lot of family members, and we don't have any idea how big the room is or how many rooms. So anyways, to keep you posted, you guys can watch it, real time live.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah, Sam Stanton from the SAC-B, I talked with him this morning because of course, and he had mentioned that he had heard they were looking at, this cracks me up, the Sacramento Convention Center or, Cal Expo. So, there you go. Holy shit, right? I'm trying, like, in a weird way, one of the things we had at Department 61, which I really appreciate, we had great bailiffs. The judge has been amazing. We see our regular reporters. There's kind of an intimacy that's been at Department 61. Again, that's a court. You guys have seen pictures. I posted them. It's a funky courtroom, literally in the county jail. So it's just right there with one of the hottest waiting areas ever because they made a sunroom in Sacramento. I don't know what they were thinking, but it's a very intimate courtroom. And if you got a big booty like me, you don't even really fit in the chairs very well. So it's tight space. Now we'll have a lot more space, and I guess we'll lose some of that intimacy, but that's okay. I mean, that's okay. That's how it has to be. And to me, it's a community that was wounded, and I wish every darn person in Sacramento County and beyond that wants to come could come. I just don't know if that's going to be the case. But I feel like this belongs to everybody. It's not just us. But it's everybody. So let's hope that, I'm really glad they're going to stream it because that, at least you guys can participate that way. And I'll keep you up to date on that. If you follow me on Twitter or like on my Facebook page or whatever, I'll keep you guys up to speed on that stuff. So, okay, let me think. Any other big things? That's the big thing. So now I know people have questions, and that's why I wanted to open this up because I figured it's a lot easier than answering the phone all day and trying to respond to everybody. Plus, this is the most awesome thing ever, seeing all of you like, Joan, you just did like a yay, and I'm like, yes, it's so cool. So I'm super, super fired up by this. But tell me, anybody, let's just take our times. I'll also, the convention center's torn up. Okay, so if it's Cal Expo, oh, holy smokes, in the middle of summer, I mean, this is going to be weird. It's going to be warm. I guess I suppose they have giant rooms with air conditioning because the fair happens there. So, yeah. So you guys, you have to talk. I'm just going to make it that way. I'll still look at the group chat, but speak up if you have a question.
I do. Can you hear me?
I can.
How are your birds doing?
Oh my God, my baby birds are amazing. So when you shelter in place in Sacramento, I actually crocheted a nest. I'm that crazy. And they used it as their substructure. And so I have two birds' nests going on outside. One is got fledgling people. Those birds are going to fledge. They're right there. Are going to probably fledge on Friday. But the next batch is going to hatch on Friday if I have my timing right. So it's pretty awesome. They're little house finches. But yes, it's been everything to me to have these little guys. I swear, some of the days I've sat here crying, my chair is right over here, my little recliner, and I sit there and watch my birds, and I'm like, they're everything. They're amazing. So thank you.
No, but I really had a real question too. Is there a way that the DA can make him actually do the allocation where he has to be required to speak as to what all he did?
Yeah.
There's not in California, because there is a law that he doesn't have to.
But they can't work it into the plea agreement somehow?
I think they're trying to
like
get
PTK.
Other things to happen. Is that is one they were willing to forego.
Yeah.
I'm hoping after this is all put to bed, somebody will either leak a bunch of stuff or share with us a bunch of stuff that we don't know now. Because,
right.
To be delicate, but I got questions.
Questions. I mean, I'm not even involved in it. I have questions.
Right? Like maybe we should start a Google Doc and just have all the questions on one giant Google Doc.
Exactly.
Because I want to know about Sharon. I want to know.
How does she not know? That's another question.
Right? Like that's for the other Zoom where we start to drink. But right? I mean, there's just a whole bunch of stuff there because we have a lot of unanswered questions, like the randomness. How many people have asked me, why did he pick your dad and Charlene? It's like, I don't know.
And how did, when he got caught stealing dog repellent and a hammer, why wasn't that not looked into with all the crimes going around at the time? That's another thing I didn't understand. That to me seemed very suspicious to have those two items stolen from a.
He looked
hardware
exactly
store.
like the sketch as well.
Yeah. Hey, Deep Throat, without showing your face, are you on this call? I know she is. She could probably tell us a little more about that because she's done a lot of the forensic research and gone and looked at the arrest reports and everything. But I think also at the same time, you know, we have the Fraternal Order of Police, and I don't want to get into all the politics of police right now because some are amazing and some are crappy.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that we all tend to protect our own. Regardless of what clubs we belong to, we tend to advocate for those people. So there's a good chance that he probably just got overlooked. I know Paige, you asked, but it probably got overlooked because, or brushed aside because, oh, we're just going to do him a solid. Like we're just going to look the other way. And nobody had indicated that he could possibly be a thief. He's breaking into houses. He's casing houses before he ever goes there. And somebody said he usually had 1, 2, 3 list. He didn't just have his A target, but he had a B target and a C target if A went wonky. I mean, that's the level of preparation here. So I don't think it really fit the MO they were looking for at the time. Maybe I'm wrong. It'd be interesting to hear.
Didn't he threaten to kill his superior as well when he got sacked?
Yeah, that's true.
And he still didn't twig, and he looked like the sketch. He looked exactly like the sketch.
That's true.
Stuff, and that's what I do. So I've always been itching to look at that because I suspect when he talked to a psychologist in that workers' comp claim, which he would have if he added a stress component, I would be very interested to see what he said in it.
Yeah, that,
you know, to discuss why he was terminated. Yes, I'm filing a stress claim because I've been terminated from my job. Well, why were you terminated? Well, but they shouldn't have, and it caused me stress.
And Sue, yeah, right. And the other day when Deep Throat was talking, she explained that, yeah, that workers' comp case, because he appealed it. So he said, my boss is causing me stress, which I'm like,
right.
Oh my God. Then he appealed it. And so that's how she was able to get more access to the information, is because he actually appealed the workers' comp. Can you imagine the balls? Like
what happens is they go to the workers' comp appeals board. It's like the workers' comp court, right? So anytime you file a workers' comp claim, that's where it's done and it's heard. But back in those days, and especially with law enforcement, they could claim, I mean, I had a guy that embezzled from McDonald's and filed a stress claim because it stressed him out when they talked to him. So, you know.
I'm so living life wrong. I mean,
I feel a lot of the time.
Nobody on this call is a whiner. There's just no whiners here. You guys are all ass kickers, like just no whiners. Can you imagine? Yeah, it's just not working for me. I'm gonna need to complain because the stress of me being busted I'm not doing it right.
Can you hear me about the workers' comp claim?
Okay, wait. Whoever's talking, you need to get a little closer to your microphone because I can't quite hear you.
Jennifer, can you hear me talking about the workers' comp claim?
There you are, yes.
There was only very, very sketchy information left in that file. There was nothing detailed at all in that file because it was from 1979. There were only bits and pieces. It was his address, about the claim numbers filed, and it showed by the claim numbers in there that he didn't get paid and that they referred him over to some kind of training to retrain him to work in the workforce on something else. So it's not like it was a detailed file with 10 pages or anything like that. It was very sketchy. It's almost like if you took a dead body and there were only bones left. So
okay, that Deep Throat makes an appearance. I love that.
And I wonder if the retraining was like the mechanic thing. I know he did that he already did that, but I wonder if maybe that was part of the retraining. And then he, later went into his little, Save Mart, whatever it is.
And also on that workers' comp claim, what several of us who knew about it found interesting is, what they listed his address is? That one down in Southern California. So as soon as he got fired, yeah, that was really interesting. As soon as he got fired, I don't have the file in front of me. I forget the name. he was living on down there. Maybe somebody else on here knows it, but that's the street they showed him being at, not his Citrus Heights address. So that was really interesting.
We can't, you're muffling again. I want to make sure we get your audio. It's good audio. So there's an address in Southern California, and I don't know if I know that address. Do you know the city at least? Is that the Orange County address?
I would have to pull the file out and see.
We got time.
There was a Long Beach, but you know, we can get that later. I know there was a Garden Grove and a Long Beach.
Okay, Garden Grove and Long Beach. And Long Beach is still LA County, I think, isn't it? Yeah, it's LA County. And that's been some of the challenges, that some of this primary source stuff is scattered across the state. So while Deep Throat's really good up here in Northern California, Sue, actually, who's talking, is willing to help us in Southern California. So I need to get you two connected. We can go pull the files, because that's another way to go get. Go ahead. Okay, more questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I am wondering, and from what I've seen, like rumors going around on the internet, is that he is going to confess to crimes he hasn't been charged with. Is that anything that you've heard?
So those would be, if that's what you're hearing, it's my understanding those will be the additional 62 crimes.
Wow.
Because he couldn't be charged with, and again, they're not reading as counts, but as Chris hears it, he will still plead guilty. And again, I kind of tuned into that part with Ventura, but I was also listening to so many of the things they were saying. But the 62 crimes would be things like Chris's rape, you know, when she was 15, there's no statute of limitations for that. So that's my understanding, Anne, of what will be included.
Okay.
Which is good. I mean, that's fantastic.
No, that's perfect. That's just that, you know, how quickly news spreads and then gets twisted. So people are saying that he was going to admit to over 80 rapes or something like that. And I was like, I saw that on Facebook somewhere and I was like, that doesn't seem right, that he would volunteer more information than what he's being charged.
I think that's part of the negotiation that's been going on. And actually, I wouldn't be talking about it, except Sam broke that in the story today in the Bee, so I feel like it's out there. And again, me confirming it is not as good as the lawyers confirming it. And I'm hoping the lawyers are going to confirm some of this. They've been, they've confirmed some things, but I know that they're still negotiating, and I don't want to do anything to upset the negotiations. I'm hoping very much that this just goes according to plan. There's every reason, I'm making this up, it's my hypothesis again, but there's every reason why DeAngelo would want to have this be done, not only for him personally, but I've long believed the one obligation he's had, and I say it as an obligation because I don't know if it's love, is his daughters. And so I do believe, it's so funny, Joan, I'm seeing your dog and I see your dog on Facebook all the time. That's cracking me up. But it's the one obligation that he has is to those girls, right? Those daughters deserve none of this. As far as I'm concerned, they're victims like everyone else. And again, I feel like that's what he was trying to avoid by not having any sort of a preliminary hearing or trial, because they live here. This is their home, and they would be in the news every damn day. And that has got to be hard. I know how hard it is for me, and I'm just over here minding my own world. I can't even imagine for them. I just can't. So I'm hoping that that is his motivation, which means he'll stick to it, and we'll get this thing done on the 29th. And then we can all do this meeting with wine.
So Jen,
yes.
I want to just throw in, because you've heard my soapbox, but
this is Chris. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, this is Chris. This is angry Chris over here. But I don't feel the same way about his dog. I mean, I feel that they're victims and all, but I feel like there's something that's going to come out at trial and maybe at the preliminary that he does not want to come out, whether that has to do with Sharon or whatnot. But I just feel like he's going to do anything to get out of that trial, because maybe we actually would have got answers that we've been asking, and he doesn't want us to have them. Like something's there, 150 witnesses they were going to have at the prelim. People know things, and he doesn't want that to come out. That's my opinion. The nicer way to look at it.
I'm sorry. It's also part of his power trip too, where he has to have control.
Mhm.
You know, that's true. And I do like, now you can tell where we sit around drinking wine and talking about this stuff because the thing is, I think Chris has a point. This is a shrewd man who's gotten away with murder, and he's been everywhere. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's stuff that we don't know, and there's things that he's afraid that we would learn. What kills me, oh, I'm so frustrated, is I've really been waiting for a good, and Patty, you'll love this, a good criminologist to dig in. Like those of us that really like the psychology and the pathology of this thing. And the thing is that they had hired someone, and I don't know who it is yet. I'm told they'll share it with me later, but they hired someone, but they didn't, at $400 an hour, they didn't spend a ton of money on it yet because we weren't getting there yet. So that was an expense that was coming with the prelim, but we're not there yet. So I'm really bummed because I don't think we've had an extraordinary psychological profile of this guy. We all know narcissist and stuff, but I really don't understand, even as a narcissist, how do you fuel yourself to compulsively commit crimes almost at the expense of eating? Well, he ate on the job. We know he ate while he committed the crimes, but I mean, sleeping and showing up at home and bringing home a paycheck. He was able to be this prolific in that relatively small window of time. And by the way, for all of you listening that say he showed up at your house in the early 80s, I believe you. I absolutely believe you. There are so many victims that have been touched by him that aren't even included in this. To me, they're on the edges of this thing and they're a part of the fabric, but they haven't been able to have their story included. And I'm absolutely happy to interview you if you want to tell your story, because I feel like those stories need to come out. But I have people who've told me in the 80s, he absolutely has peeped in their window or been at their door or tried to get in. It's just that he lost his agility, by the way.
And so Jennifer, so those of us where he was at our window, do we get to speak and have a victim statement too? Maybe Chris can address.
I don't think so. I mean, that's just from the short statement I saw. It was for victims and family members. That doesn't mean you can't, but that's just what I remember reading.
Okay.
And that's absolutely why I'm willing to give voice and just do an interview with you and at least have you included in the podcast, because I know a lot of people have been hurt by him. And to me, this oral history is everything. Like if we have nothing else, we'll have the oral history of the people who've been hurt. So, and there are a lot. And so, yeah, what's the pathology of a person who could be this prolific and absolutely push down all of his human needs to keep feeding this one drive that he had, this compulsive drive to hurt people, to be the guy who could scale walls and slide through windows and prep a crime scene in an empty house before you come home. I mean, god damn, that's just so demented.
Jen,
yes,
you say he had a massive compulsion and he did, but I'm in the minority. I don't think he stopped offending in general. I don't think he had this big hiatus. I think he would have had such a rush, and he would have had such a goal, like you said. He had this aura. He would have had this aura about him. I don't think he could have stopped. I think he was hooked on the power that he had from these offences. I don't think he stopped for all that time, and maybe that's what he's worried about: people finding out any other crimes that he did commit.
I think, Mark, that's a really valid hypothesis, honestly. And I know there's one woman I really want to interview, but she's been afraid. I want to interview her because she talks about things that are contemporary that she believes he's absolutely responsible for, including leaving some of the souvenirs. He seemed to have had a habit, and I have a cat in this room that's going to knock something over, so get ready for the crash. But he seems to have had a habit of depositing souvenirs at other people's houses. In some cases, like some things would show up, a coin or an earring or a trinket or something would move from one house to another. So, and those things are still part of the story that we were not going to get answers to right away unless we all tell each other. Unless we tell each other, we're not going to get all the answers. So that's one of the reasons I want to capture this oral history.
It's a drug, isn't it? It's a drug to him. It's like a coke addict suddenly deciding go cold turkey overnight. You don't just turn off those urges, that feeling of power, the planning he put into his attacks, the way he treated his victims, the feeling that probably gave him. You don't just switch that off and suddenly go on a 10-year, whatever it was, break. I just think it's virtually impossible for someone like him to just suddenly go, click his fingers and just stop.
So you were going to add to that, yeah.
We won't know, but it might go back to like the girls, you know, because then he had all his girls. Not saying he stopped, but he's losing agility. He's got his kids. Sharon's busy with her law practice. It might have changed, you know, to something else. And by putting everybody together, had there been a trial, I think, you know, people who tell a lot of lies like to keep everybody in their lives separate, because when everybody's together, it all coming together. And I think that would have happened
Exposed.
public, right? I think you victims can still do that, but I think he did not do that in public, because then you know, again, if he cares about his girls at all, they start putting together, okay, I was 6 and this is what he was doing then, and that's just, how do you even live with that?
Yeah.
Hi.
I love the fact you can do witness statements as well. I think that's going to be, that really is your moment. And that's going to humiliate him. But think about what he's felt. He's like bulletproof, and he's what he's like thought he's God and all this lot. And you get to stand there and absolutely humiliate him.
Well, and the way witness statement now, so Mark, you can get excited, but there are rules for how a witness statement works. And as I understand it, it's so funny, I look at the camera and then I look at Mark over there. But is that the way a witness statement works is I wondered who the audience was, because I'm like marketing and messaging, right? That matters to me. Your audience is the judge. So you are speaking to the judge. So we don't get to speak to DeAngelo. We can speak of him, but we don't speak to him.
Actually, you can, Jen. I was reading
Did you
up on
look more?
this.
Oh, good.
And you just have to ask the judge for permission.
Oh.
So like you might be saying blah, 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 you know, and how your life was changed. And then you would say, you know, Judge so-and-so, I ask your permission to speak directly to inmate DeAngelo, whatever. And then he would say yes, and then you could do it. But you have to ask permission.
Damn, though, that's going to take some, okay, I'm going to have to work up that courage.
I think you'll get through that purely on adrenaline. I think you'll just flick it. You will. You wait. You'll get to it, and you'll be, this is my chance, and you'll flick a switch, and then you'll be in control, and he'll be sitting there like a little. I'm not going to swear, but he'll be sitting there shrinking back into his chair, and you'll be pounding him, and I think that's brilliant.
I have a question for Chris. Chris, have you prepared your victim statement already?
No, I haven't, but this is something I've never done, right? So how do you capture in this statement everything that how you've changed, especially like, well, for me, I don't even know how I changed. I was too young to be who I was anyways, you know? So what I'm doing is I'm just taking notes when I start thinking about what I want to say, and they may make absolutely no sense, but I've just taken the notes. And then I feel like in the next few weeks, especially after the 29th, I'll start scratching out the ones that, you know, I had all the foul language and, you know, blah, 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 and really kind of try to get down to my real feelings. And then thank God I have a therapist, because this is a big deal. It's very scary, and it's our one time to say our piece. And so, you know, it's got to be right. You know, it can't just be, you know, flippant. It's got to take thought. So I haven't, and I'm afraid to do it. But right now I have notes of my feelings. And then later, hopefully I'll be able to string those together. I'll probably call Ms. Carol over there, because she's pretty good with her words. She could help me out. But
it is a big responsibility, I guess. I mean, there's so little to this case now in terms of a court record, so this will be part of the record, and it does feel like a huge responsibility to be both thoughtful and, you know, to capture everything we can about what he did, because we're not going to have any other way to do that. We're not testifying on the stand. There's no, my brother's breathing easy. He doesn't have to testify, because I know that was just not something he wanted to do. So instead we have these impact statements, and that's going to be a big portion of what's left here as the remnant of this incredibly huge 40-year case. So
And you know what, Jen,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
He actually gets a copy of every one of our statements too, so he can go back and read it as much as he wants.
Well, I would like to sign that copy. Let's see if we can do that. That sounds fantastic. Take that copy, all right. It's interesting if he gets a copy. I wonder how they're going to do that. Like, this could be a really interesting, just on its own, just an interesting thing to bind and have available as a free thing for people, a big PDF of all the statements, because it's going to reflect so many different people. And, Chris and I are talking about this. I've watched Chris change over the last 2 years. It's great, been amazing. And I guess we all have. I swear to God, I'm much more of a soft muffin than I used to be. And I just don't mean physically, I mean like soft. I've become a softie. But it is going to be an interesting point of view, because everybody, one of the things I've liked best about the squad as a group of survivors is everybody really has had their own point of view, and we've honored that. That has been an important part of us being a team, is that we allow everyone to have their own feelings about it, because everybody's different. Chris, you were 15, right? You were like the sweetest, most innocent young girl playing the piano, and then everything changed. I mean, Chris, I don't know that I'm going to share your story, Chris, but Chris, they're just asking about his description of his genitals. This is a 15-year-old that doesn't know what male genitals look like. So how does she know if they're normal or ridiculously tiny, as is the case? How is a child supposed to know that? This is a child. He's a freaking pedophile rapist. So
just said something that was really poignant to me is she wasn't fully grown yet. And so who would she have been? Who would you have been, Chris? That was very, very poignant to me, is who would you have been? Because you can't know. You'll never know.
Exactly.
And your issues, with your dad and your stepmom and whatever, what would have happened with that? He took that away. And that's really heartbreaking.
And that's so important, because I think that's the number one thing that any victim of trauma has to come to terms with. And when my friend, who was raped repeatedly as a child by her father, tried to tell me that it changed her, I like at first just fought it, because I'm like, no, you're who you are. But her point is valid. It's like the young girl that was the promise has now had to, and everyone who has had trauma, it changes you. It makes you either, more on alert or sadder, or you protect things that you didn't protect before, because you shouldn't have to be paranoid all the time. So trauma really is this fundamental thing. And I used to think the change was bad, but now finally I understand the change is actually purposeful. And if we can embrace that change and move forward, we can go out and create so much good with it. Again, I'll get my soapbox and put it back under my desk. But the thing is, that's what I've learned about trauma, is if you can talk or express yourself in any way, shape, or form, artistically, crafty, however that expression is, it's something you can actually absorb and make yourself better as a result. And that's, I think, the hardest part of moving through trauma, is accepting that it can make you better. And then once you embrace it going forward, because I've watched these survivors do that, and me being one of them, and it's been amazing. But it's
so I just want to throw in, I'm not plugging my site, but
yes,
the only good thing for me right now that I can hold on to, well, I mean, there are many good things. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I finally, because for anyone who knows my story, you probably do, it's just I was never allowed to talk about it. So even at 56 years old, my sister and I had never talked about it yet. We lived in the same house. We just went on like nothing ever happened. So not talking about it was a really big deal. So I finally got the courage, with a lot of encouragement from some of the squad people and others. And I started a Facebook group, and it's called It's Time to Tell Your Story. And it's not a big group, but I have about 145 so far. And these stories are tragic, and they're all very, very different. You know, there's stranger rape, there's within your family, you know, there's just different kinds. But I feel like this experience, kind of to your point, Jen, I did embrace it for that. And I'm walking out and I am allowing, I'm an arm for a voice for others. And, you know, I don't have to do much in the group. I mean, you know, it's their story, but they have a safe place. And I'm really grateful for that. And I think that if I were to walk away and say, what's the best thing that happened of this, is that I can lend support for other people that need a voice. So sorry if I went on about that, but you just
No,
kind of.
it's called, so it's a Facebook group. It's private. So Chris screened you before she let you in, but it's open to anybody who wants to start to
That's
tell
a
their
really
story.
nice thing to do.
Yeah, it's called It's Time to Tell Your Story on Facebook. I think you can find it through mine or Chris's Facebook pages. We should be there, or if just reach out to us and we'll get you there. And if you know somebody who needs it, which is very likely in this group, absolutely get them in there, because people are just basically putting their toe in the water, starting to talk, listening to other people talk. There's sometimes a lot of voyeurism, because that's a good way to learn, is to listen to others and watch. So that's there. And Chris, I mean, it's been huge. And I can't believe you're up to 150, which also is like, I can't believe 150 people have been hurt, but it's a safe place.
And not all of them are, you know, I've always said, you know, if victims only tell victims, I don't think that victims need to be able to tell people that aren't victims and still feel the support from the outside public, because typically they don't want to talk about it. You know, if they find out something happened to them, then they're more open, but people shield it from the outside because they're afraid it won't be accepted. So even if you're not a victim, I think it's super important to go on and just say, hey, I'm not a victim, but I support you. You know, this must have been awful. Or, you know, it just, I don't know, it just gives a good feeling of being accepted. And if it's only victims who are accepting victims, I think it's different than victims and supporters. Does that make sense? Am I tripping over my tongue?
No, there's a couple therapists in there, right? There's some others. There's some nice balance, I think. So just if you want to share that, please dive in. Okay, so I don't even know what time check. Okay, 5. Okay, maybe we'll wrap up about in another 7 minutes. But what else do people have to say? This is a good chance. Go for it.
I think when you make your statement, don't. I know it's gonna be. I can't even imagine what you're going through, thinking about it. But literally, don't give him the satisfaction of seeing you cry or be really upset. Just look him in the eye and really mean what you say. You can, as soon as you get off the stand, you know, do what you got to do. But for those 5 minutes, just look him straight in the eye. That will infuriate him, because you're in control of that room, and everyone's looking at him as in, you piece of shit. Yeah, do whatever you need to do. But you know what I mean? Look him straight in the eye just for those 5 minutes and just tell him exactly.
I challenge each of you guys to think of the statement you would write, because I think
exactly. That's a great time.
I really, really would love to hear everybody's statements, because I think everybody's got a different point of view. And even if you've just been a watcher, I think it's important to express yourself in this way. What would you want to say if you were us, or how do you feel from where you sit? Because I think that those voices, I mean, I'm happy to start to gather them. You can send them to me and I'll start to build it.
I would like to tell him that I've been using his face for target practice over at the shooting range, which I have been doing.
She literally has, I have a photograph of her target all shot up. I'm like, oh, I should post this, but it's kind of.
We should put that permanently at the shooting range, because it's in Roseville and everybody hates him there anyway.
Well, I'm happy to start a compendium of witness statements from everybody else, because I think this crime involved everybody. It's just not, this one isn't exclusive. This one's a California crime and beyond.
I know you're all victims, but you're also survivors, and you've got to remember, you've got to have the survivor mentality. You've got to go into this with a survivor mentality. You're victims, but you're also survivors. That's a hugely important. I think they should call them survivor statements. Really, honestly, I do. I think it's a mindset. There's a difference in mindset between survivor and victim. And I really think you need to go into this with a survivor mentality and really shove it to him. To be perfectly honest.
Oh, we have, okay, and Megan, some people on the chat, like Megan was talking about a Walnut Creek and in Sacramento, like, yeah, he's been a boogeyman for a lot of people. And that's the part I think is, one of the parts that I think is so sad is that it just stripped the innocence from Sacramento. It stripped the innocence from the Bay Area. People started to be afraid. And that's some BS, man. The 70s were awesome for those of us old enough to remember them. But we had Hornets and Pacers, and we had, cereal boxes we could read when we ate our cereal. And there were some cool things about the 70s that were so awesome. And of course we ran in and out of the house nonstop. No doors were locked. We were beasts. You'd slept with the windows open in Sacramento because there was nothing better than a Sacramento evening when the Delta breeze would hit. So I know, because of Grandma's house, like, I know how beautiful all that was. And to think that everybody lost that. Just now, my poor daughter, when it cools down here, I'm like, at night, lock it up. She still knows no windows open, because that's how we got in. I mean, even now, I still enforce that rule. No windows open. I'd rather run the air conditioner, even though it's less pleasant than the breeze. If we're going to be asleep, if I'm going to really be asleep, windows have to be locked. Sorry.
Wow.
It's awful. But
I got to get you a bigger gun, Jennifer.
I don't do guns because I know I would do
I know.
Yeah, I know. I have hairspray. I have perfume. I'm going to get the bad guy. All you got to do is hit him in the face. Then you can hit him everywhere else. But you just got to distract him for a few minutes. Then you get the advantage. I always have my stuff by my bed. Well, actually, not by this bed. This bed's different. In this house, you trip over cats anyway. It's a mess. So, okay. Are there more questions? Because sent questions during email. Okay, wait, somebody sent some questions during email. Let me just check. I can also take other questions because I'm happy to. That's why I wanted to do this. Let's see, there's too many. I hate to tell you this, but there's a lot of questions on here. Yeah, I think, I can't, it's too hard to look at with everybody online, but I will try to answer questions on email tonight or tomorrow morning, because tonight I expect a crash. Finally, holding a secret for 2 weeks is hard. Chris can tell you, we've had a hard time. And I felt the adrenaline start to already leave as the story broke today. I'm like, oh my God, I might actually sleep tonight, like in a different way, like deep, because we don't have to be quiet anymore. And it's been hard with all the justice discussions going on in our culture. It's been hard to be quiet knowing we have a dirty cop that's going to go down finally. And I'm a huge Black Lives Matter supporter. Anybody knows me, human rights, civil rights. So that's my jam. So this is another human rights, civil rights issue. I think you guys, there's no way to express, and we talk about this as survivors, the support we've had from everybody, like everybody listening right now. It's amazing to me how the world's changed. We're crowdsourcing, and having followers that follow a crime can be so important. It's absolutely been incredibly supportive.
Well, one good thing that has come from this, the way they caught him with the DNA, so many cases now are being solved that way. So this is amazing that they were able to do that, and how many cases are now being able to get closed and the family getting closed. I don't know if closure is a really good word, but to know what happened, I think is amazing. I
always think getting answers, and you're right, the DNA, and I get to talk to Dr. Speth now. He was the forensic coroner who got the DNA that is what got DeAngelo from my stepmother. So we haven't been able to talk because of the case, but now that the case is going to be wrapped up, I'm going to get to talk with Dr. Speth. He's fascinating person to talk to. I mean, every time I talk to him, it's like a huge conversation. But you're right, getting answers for people who need answers. And I suspect we'll probably get Zodiac. There is DNA, from what I understand.
The back of a stamp, isn't it? On the back of a stamp.
Yeah, the back of the stamp, right? And there's so many others, and I'm hoping that we continue down this path. In California, we got that felony DNA law. And I tend to walk the line, because I do think the accused has rights too. And I really want to make sure that, because I don't want to I was accused, right? I was a suspect for 5 minutes, but I know what that's like. Luckily I didn't take it seriously. But when I talk about what Joe Alsip went through as being tried in the case for my dad, and to know he was innocent, and what he lost financially, what he lost in terms of his reputation, and he didn't do it. And so to think what he went through, I really do walk that line between, you know, you do have a right as a as a suspect, and then also we have rights as victims. So I often straddle that line because it's really important to me to make sure that both sides have a fair chance. And of course, that's when I get worked up about Black Lives Matter, because of course in America, it's been absolutely unfair. There's not a fair chance. And that's another thing that pisses me off about DeAngelo. This thing's freaking cake for this son of a bitch. And then we've got a woman in jail somewhere in the South for accidentally voting wrong. I mean, don't even get me started. Don't get me started. Color of the skin, that's just ridiculous to me. So this guy, our guy, let's just hope he's not going to end up in general population. I did a podcast on how this thing works and where he'll be and how the criminal justice system works at the point he's handed off to a Department of Corrections and all of that. So you might want to listen to that. But he will definitely be in what they call PC, protective custody. And then you'll hear the LWOP, life without parole, which is the other thing you'll hear people refer to as LWOP. So there's your words for the day, your glossary terms for the day.
Lingo.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, if anybody has their card, but those are the terms you'll hear. You're starting to hear, and then as he goes into corrections, if I recall from what I reported, he goes into first. There's this probationary period, which is supposed to be pretty unpleasant. Again, not Gen Pop for him, but it's very, very rigid. And then he'll be regular in protective custody, although I've been assured by a friend who is actually in a federal prison right now that he will be, that he can still be, let's say, influenced by others, even if he's in protective custody. So I suspect he wants to die anyway. There's not much to live for at this point, other than his own obstinance. But
As soon as
So is he gonna avoid San Quentin by pleading guilty and not, being convicted and put on death row?
yep, he won't get to go make googly eyes at Scott Peterson. Nope. I know. Yeah. Ugh, I just hate that guy. That guy and what's that? Richard Allen Davis too. We got all like classes killers just sitting over
full
there.
of them. San Quentin's full of them. Absolutely full of evil, horrible people.
Yeah, actually, if you haven't gone to the Wikipedia of who's sitting on death row,
At
it's
San
worth
Quentin.
a refresher course. Right.
Yeah, I
Marcus?
live pretty close to the Supermax in Florence, so I'm in Colorado Springs. So Florence is about 90 minutes away, and there's quite the rap list there too.
I bet there is.
Yeah, I don't understand bad guys, but then that's me. I just don't understand.
Imagine the canteen at San Quentin at lunchtime, like all the tables and like, oh, there's so and so. Oh, there's so. Can you imagine who sits with who? It's like.
It's interesting because one of the things my prosecutor did tell me to do if I was interested in the next few weeks, she said I should go visit a prison, and she said it'll be prettied up and made to look nice for visitors. But she said you can absolutely go do it, and you should do it just to be reminded that it's not lovely. And I'm like, well, okay, I trust it's not lovely, but it's interesting. I might actually do that and talk about it. It's not at the top of my list right now. I tend to pick up on the karma at those places, the vibe, and I don't necessarily know if I want that vibe, but I get it. The point is that it won't be pleasant, but it's still, to me, friction-free considering what others go through. So we all get to go pursue the justice and make sure that all of us are working towards justice being actually fair, which I think is where I'm ending up on what justice is. Actually, it's just about fairness, and we don't have that yet. That's on all of us. We got to get justice to be fair.
Jennifer,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Margie. I was wondering if he does go to Corcoran or anywhere, well, I mean, he's going to go somewhere. Do you think he will want to have someone write a book where we can get more information?
Okay, that's Margie from Visalia. If you've heard the podcast, that was not my mom, Margie Smith, but the other Margie Smith.
No, this is the wine one.
The wine one, not the Scotch drinking Margie Smith.
Right.
So interesting. God, I hadn't thought about that. Well, he's not allowed to profit off of it. So that's one thing that's good. California has a law, you're not allowed to profit off your crimes. So that's an interesting.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, well, my main concern would be Jennifer and Donna. And I would imagine that that's not in the mix, but I'm
Right.
just wondering if we can play to his egotistical behavior and get him to want to be, well known. You know, he's the biggest and the baddest, and everyone else is stupid. So anyway, I'm hoping that he'll want someone to write a book.
Kelly.
I'm not volunteering. Definitely not volunteering, but I hope. That's my hope.
Well, we have an author sitting on the call right now. She's in the middle of my Brady Bunch. Kelly's right there. Let's see.
I would totally love to talk to this dipshit in person.
I don't know if he talked to a woman the same way he would talk to a man, but
I don't think he would talk to anybody, honestly. I've thought about it a lot. What do you think?
He hasn't said a word yet, has he? He hasn't said a word to anyone yet, has he? Not even an interrogation.
not even from what we understand, not even his family. Yeah,
Wow.
that's
He's a psychological sadist. He's not going to want to like tip his hand to anybody. I think that his like major method of control now would just be remaining quiet. I think, or, you know, Jennifer, like you were saying, he's not going to want to live for very long anyway.
maybe our best luck would be to give him a tape recorder and let him go. He could just do it, because nobody could tell the story as well as he could, right? Like, let's appeal to the narcissism here.
But I do like Margie's idea that he might be, you know, yeah, a narcissist would love to tell his own story.
Well, they could do what they did with Ted Bundy and like get him to tell him in third person, so they can't actually prosecute him for it. But they got Ted Bundy to talk in a third person, like this is what you could have done, or this is what I would have done. But that, you know what I mean? So
maybe we could get Edward Kemper to interview DeAngelo.
There you go.
Because Kemper's smart enough, and he could charm his way right in there. Okay, this is like, so we're so weirdos. We're all weirdos.
We're all hoping.
I know, but I'm like, Kemper's just right there. Kemper's on death row though, right? He's on death row too. So yeah, but I pay for that. Let's go get Kemper to interview DeAngelo. That's perfect. Like perfect. And Kemper's so smart. He totally
crazy profiling crazy. It was like I said to you the other day. No better profiler than crazy.
That's right.
Do you think Kemper would talk to a woman?
I don't know. He's from Santa Cruz County, right? He's like my guy. He's from town. I don't know. That would be interesting.
Guy. He's your guy.
It's so funny.
He could be your agent.
Yeah. Freaking silly. Okay, so here's what I'll do. Y'all know you can reach me on Facebook and Twitter. I'm going to put this up as a recording. I mean, I'll post this so people can listen to it if they want to see. I'll just post this as video, and everybody can be video famous. And then I will, if you have any questions, absolutely tweet at me. My email is available through my website. So if you go to jcarroll.com or The Lawyer's Daughter, you can get to contact, and my email's there. And I think I put it in tricky so it can't be turned into a bot, or bots can't get it. But you can always reach out to me. I might take a delay in it getting back to you on email, but I try my best. And I appreciate y'all coming on, because you have no idea how supported I feel by all of you. It's just amazing. I know I say it, but I really mean it. I think Chris has started to feel it too. It's just nice to have folks that just kind of have our back and represent for us on social media and look out for us when we're getting attacked, which is rare. Really, it is rare. But this has been amazing, and I really appreciate y'all showing up today, because we're getting there. It's gonna be an interesting next couple of weeks. So I might do this again after. I'm gonna probably need a day, but I think it'd be cool to talk again after and just hear how everybody else has experienced it too, because I'm really interested in your take. So I'll look to set something up, and we can do this again after the 29th, which would, I guess, be the 30th. Let's plan on the 30th, maybe. Thank you so much for coming. This is great.
No, thanks for doing it, and thanks for letting me hop on as well. Thanks for. That's
right. Well, Mark, you stayed up, I think, maybe the latest. So.
Yeah, it is actually now 1:40 a.m.
Oh wow.
That's commitment, people. That's commitment. Okay, I'll talk to you all online.
Right.
Love ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Au revoir.